A short biography of Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci, scientist who invented the telephone. The emergence of technology cannot be separated from various kinds of research and experiments that have been carried out by scientists. Of the many technologies that have been created by scientists, one of them is telephone technology. Thanks to the invention of the telephone, we have come across various types of telephones, from landlines to cell phones or mobile phones. With the telephone, we can communicate with people who are far away. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci. Without the research and experiments carried out by Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci, perhaps the telephone would not have existed. However, most people know that the inventor of telephone communication was Alexander Graham Bell. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci was an Italian national who was born on April 13, 1808 in San Frediano. Meucci is a graduate of the Florence Academy of Arts. This Italian scientist can be said to be the inventor of a modern tool that is still used by many people, namely the telephone. Before migrating with his wife, Meucci worked for several companies, one of which was the Teatro della Pergola company until 1835. After no longer working at the Teatro della Pergola, Meucci started working at the Teatro Taken in Havana, Cuba. After migrating with his wife, every life he lived was always accompanied by research and experimenting with new things. Meucci has tried many new things. Meucci is someone who does not give up, so Meucci carries out many new experiments with enthusiasm. Electric shock experiment. Before carrying out telephone research and experiments, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci had developed electrical energy. At that time, Meucci succeeded in developing electric shocks. The electric shock that was developed can be used to relieve and cure several types of diseases. Apparently, the discovery of electric shock was very popular with many people, so that the name Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci became increasingly known to many people. After the success of the electric shock that had been discovered, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci began researching and experimenting with devices that could help humans communicate even if they were not close together. However, in 1850, he had to move from Staten Island, New York. When he moved, the situation could not be said to be very pleasant because Meucci fell into poverty. Even though he fell into poverty, his research and experiments on telephone communication devices continued. Not only did he fall into poverty, Antonio also suffered from a serious illness. So, to meet his living needs, Meucci was forced to sell the things he already owned. The goods sold were not only used to meet his living needs, but were also used for the treatment of Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci. With all his struggles to survive, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci managed to recover from the illness he was suffering from. Then, Meucci returned to work to conduct research and experiments for the success of the telephone. Meucci was eager to finish what he had done. Managed to find the phone. After that, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci succeeded in inventing a telephone communication device in 1849 for the first time. Approximately 20 years later, Meucci patented his invention, or more precisely in 1871 his invention was patented. However, patent rights for his invention can only be paid for 1 year. This is because Meucci was unable to pay for patent rights for the following years. Never giving up on extending his patent rights, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci began to demonstrate or introduce his invention, namely the telephone, to a telegraph company. At that time, many telegraph companies had been established because there were no long-distance communication tools that could be used. The telegraph company that was the place to demonstrate Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci's findings was the Western Union Telegraph Company. However, Meucci was never given the opportunity to meet the deputy chairman of the company, Edward B. Grant. Every time he wanted to be invited to meet, Edward B. Grant always said that he was busy and didn't have time. 2 years after holding a demonstration at the company, it was discovered that the phone had been lost. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci, who heard this information, was devastated and felt that his struggle to become the inventor of the telephone was in vain. Unexpectedly, news emerged that Alexander Graham Bell was declared the inventor of the telephone communication device. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci, who heard the news, then called a lawyer. Meucci called in lawyers to protest that the United States Patent Office had given a statement about the inventor of the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. However, Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci's attempt to summon a lawyer and protest about the inventor of the telephone failed because he lost at trial. What was even more surprising was that Alexander Graham Bell had agreed to the agreement he had made with the Western Union Telegraph Company. The contract is that every 20% of profits from telephone sales will be given to Western Union. Antonio Santi Giuseppe Meucci felt like he had been betrayed by the Western Union Telegraph Company. The inventor of the telephone died on October 18, 1889 at the age of 81.